so pleased to be joined with Haverhill Mayor Jim Fiorentini, who is now the record longest-serving mayor of Haverhill. He just announced he's running for re-election. He's done a lot of good stuff to Haverhill, and we're here to talk about that, about his Italian background, and much more. Mayor, thank you for being here. Happy Sunday.
Thank you very much. It took a lot to get me out on Sunday, Eszter.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. So let's start by asking, you were first elected in 2004. What are some of your biggest accomplishments?
I'm tempted to say what Mike Bonfanti said when he retired as mayor of Peabody. He said, I don't have any accomplishments. Everything has to be done as a team. People have to work together. And there's certainly something to that. I'm most proud in my administration working with a group of people that we've been able to revitalize the downtown area. When I took office, the old shoe factories had been abandoned for decades. They were fire traps waiting to happen. Today we have $150 million worth of new investment in the downtown, about 800 or 850 new residents, 500 new residential dwellings. We have a new parking garage, a new boardwalk, something that had been dreamt of for decades. We have a new dock system that we just put in. That's what I'm most proud of.
And how do you bring all of that? You know, the economy is not great. A lot of cities and states and the federal government is cutting back. How are you able to fund these things?
Well, a lot of hard work and a lot of people working together and a lot of luck, frankly. You have to be in the right place at the right time. I ran for office in 2004 on the platform of using brownfields money in order to revitalize old shoe factory buildings. Most of the political people that I consulted with thought that I was crazy, said nobody's ever even heard of brownfields before, and it's not an issue that really concerns people, but that's what I wanted to do. That was my passion. I was fortunate to be in the right place. Brownfields money was being given out by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, by DEP, the Massachusetts Division of Environmental Protection. Haverhill had never received any brownfields money, so we received about $2 million in brownfields money, which we used to assess and then to clean up the downtown. We then set out to rezone the downtown area. We were able to rezone it thanks to council. It was a fight, it was a battle. The big battle was about parking. We can talk about that in a minute. But we were able to get that through. And we were able to attract some national developers to come to the city, take a look at the old factory buildings and redevelop them. But I don't intend to run for re-election just on what's happened. I want to run on tomorrow. Elections are about tomorrow, not about yesterday.
Restaurants. Last time I saw you was at Butcher's. Restaurants, but brand new, great place. Lots of new restaurants opening up in downtown Haverhill.
I don't take any credit for Butcher's, but I'm thrilled to go there. Butcher's, my first cousin once removed. He's my mother's first cousin, and his daughter, whom I never knew before this, is my second cousin. Butch and I grew up together in the restaurant business. My grandparents ran the Roma restaurant. Remember the Roma, Mike? Yeah, those are my grandparents, the Scamparinos. My grandfather came over from Sicily, and he started a restaurant, the Roma Cafe, it was called in those days. Do you remember that? And I grew up in the restaurant business, and I like to joke with Butch about it. I say, I grew up in the restaurant business and learned how to serve the public. You grew up in the restaurant business and you learned how to feed the public. That's what
Let's talk about your Italian heritage. When I visited you at your office, you showed me some of the pictures of your father and some of your ancestors, and you're very proud of that Italian ancestry.
Well, obviously I had nothing to do with it, but I'm proud of the fact that I live in a great country where the grandson of 4 impoverished immigrants from another land could come here and get to be the mayor of the city. I think that's a wonderful thing. We're a melting pot here in America. We should be proud of the fact that so many different people from different lands can come here and get a success. I hear there's some people from Hungary.
There's a few of us here. But what do you credit your success? I know you said you worked at a restaurant and then you went to law school, you became a councilor. Who are your heroes? What do you credit your success for?
Well, I have heroes. I certainly don't want to compare myself to any of them. My heroes are some of the great men and women of history. Franklin Delano Roosevelt is my hero. Last week we went to the Franklin Delano Roosevelt grand reopening of the library up in Hyde Park in New York. I consider him our greatest president, certainly one of the 3 greatest presidents, Washington, Lincoln, and Roosevelt. He's always been one of my heroes. Some of my other heroes are people that no one has ever heard of before. Al Smith, the governor of New York in the 1920s and up until Roosevelt took over. I consider Al Smith, who was 1/4 Italian, by the way, known as a great Irish politician. Al Smith was the greatest governor of all time, in my opinion. He instituted programs that later became national with the New Deal. Programs like unemployment compensation. He put civil service into New York. Workers' compensation to protect the rights of injured workers. Insurance to protect people if they became elderly. These are the things that Roosevelt later on adopted in the New Deal. You know, we take for granted all of the great safety net programs here in America. I want you to think back for a minute. Maybe there's some people listening who can remember back when the Depression started in 1932 or 1929 is when it started. 25% of the country was unemployed. But 25% of the country meant something different than it means today, because generally only one member of the family was a breadwinner. You were unemployed, the entire family was out of work. And in those days, if you were out of work, there was no Social Security, there was no unemployment compensation, there was no workers' compensation, there was no welfare, there were no food stamps, Medicare, Medicaid. Sometimes when people talk about limited government, I remind them, we had it back in 1929. We had a government where people would line up outside of my grandfather's restaurant, the Roma, every morning to get food scraps so that children wouldn't starve to death. We had a government where my mother-in-law, my wife's mother, said that she stopped believing in Santa Claus when she woke up on Christmas morning and found there were no toys, no tree, nothing to eat except an orange to divide up amongst all of the children, and they were put out among family members so they all wouldn't starve to death. It was Roosevelt who came in and put in great programs like Social Security and unemployment to stop America from starving, so that America never saw what we've seen in other countries, people starving in the street. That's why these people are my heroes. I believe that the purpose of government is to help people. That's why I get up every day. How can I help somebody? And some of my other heroes, again, people that probably no one's ever heard of, but Robert Moses, the greatest master builder of all time, who built all the parks and playgrounds in New York City. And this is one of my goals in my next administration. I want to fix some of the parks and playgrounds in Haverhill. Not to compare myself to these people. I'm not of their caliber.
Well, what are some of the lessons that you've learned as mayor going along, and what are some of the things that you will implement that we will do differently in your next, if elected again?
Well, I want to do more with our parks and our playgrounds. We're going to start in this administration. We're going to reopen the 110 rest area. We're not going to call it that anymore. We're going to reopen the 110 river viewing area right down along the river in 110 near Methuen. Been closed for over 20 years. We're going to fix Swayze Field. Swayze Field is 100 years old last year. It was originally started for factory workers to have a place to cool off. And we're putting in a spray park at Swayze Field so that the children who can live in that area can have a place to relax. I want to do more with education. Since I took office, MCAS scores are up. We've been able to fix the high school, but I'm nowhere near satisfied. One of the things that concerns me the most is the education gap, the gap between what middle-class kids learn and what poor kids learn. It gets worse every year, not gets better, and that's our challenge. I want those poor children to learn more, and that means going to school longer, studying harder, being held to rigorous and tough standards.
You're proposing longer school days?
Absolutely.
So any restructuring of the school system?
I think what you need is a longer school year and a longer school day. The way to get to that is to have mandatory summer school, something that I've been pushing for years. Unfortunately, the school department doesn't always agree with me on these things, but you need to tell the child that if you don't pass, you won't pass on to the next grade. And this works. Kids want to graduate and get a degree.
Besides having some personality or personnel issues, what do you think are some of your biggest challenges? You know, economically, we've all faced challenges, but in terms of getting things done and getting through the red tape.
Well, getting through government red tape is always a challenge. I pulled my hair out over the speed of getting anything to happen in government. Some of the unfunded federal and state mandates just absolutely drive me crazy. I'm going to spend millions of dollars this year to fix a flood wall, a levee wall. It doesn't need to be fixed. The Army Corps of Engineers said it didn't need to be fixed, but we're required to spend $6 million to fix it. I'm going to spend millions of dollars to cap a landfill that doesn't need to be capped. And then I'm going to have to sweep every street in Haverhill twice because of the new stormwater regulations. This is going to cause the cost of government to be higher and people's taxes to be higher than I would like them to be. But we have a lot of challenges in government, so certainly those are a couple. Our biggest challenge right now in Haverhill is how do we attract more people and more business? Growth, and how do you do it in a responsible way so that you keep your open space and the beauty of the city? Growth is what keeps a city going. I like to say that towns live on overrides, cities live on growth. A small town where everybody's wealthy and the average person might make $300,000 or $400,000. They don't mind if the taxes go up by a few $100 a year. It doesn't matter to them. But in a city like Haverhill or Methuen or Lawrence, people don't appreciate it if you go above the Prop 2.5 limit. In fact, they won't vote for it. In order to run your city, you need growth. You always want that revitalization of new businesses coming in and new people, young, talented people coming to your town.
And so how do you do it?
Well, one of the things we've been able to do very successfully is take those old factory buildings downtown. I'd like to go the next step. We have a lot of buildings that still need to be revitalized. One of the ways to do it is something that I helped institute called the Gateway Cities Tax Credit. In the past, the great secret of these buildings is that none of them would ever be revitalized without government tax subsidies. They'd still be vacant today. But all of the tax credits went, in my opinion, the wrong way. They encouraged you to build low-income housing downtown. Most downtowns have too much low-income housing. You want low-income housing, it's the right thing to do morally in your community, but you don't want to pack it into your downtown, because those folks, all good people, most good people, don't have any disposable income. What you want downtown is upscale housing and middle-class housing where people have some money they can go out and spend, and that's what keeps your restaurants ongoing. All of the tax credits went the other way, so we were able to persuade the legislature, thanks to a great representative, Brian Dempsey, to institute something called the Gateway Cities Tax Credit, where now you can get a credit in order to build market rate housing downtown. And I hope that's the next step for downtown Haverhill. Some of the old buildings become revitalized with market rate housing. That's my goal.
Do you worry it will get too congested? You talked about responsible growth.
Yes, I do. The old slums were created because they became too congested. Most people want what you and I want, a backyard with a swing set. I do worry about that, and I do worry about sustainability. Sustainability means that young people move into a community and they stay there. They have a family, they raise children, and their children go to school there. That hasn't happened in some of the other cities, and we want it to happen in Haverhill, but the jury's still out whether that's going to happen or not.
You know, you obviously work a lot of hours. You say that you wake up and you have the city on your mind, but what are some things that people don't know about you? What are some of your hobbies? We talked about your heroes, but what do you do outside of work?
I don't do anything, to be honest with you. I have a place at the beach, and I love to go to the beach and just walk on the beach and relax there. Once in a while, I like to ride a bike or walk, but this is my whole life.
Did you always want to be mayor?
No, of course not. I wanted to be president. Who wants to be mayor? That's what I thought when I was a kid. No, I was just a normal kid like everybody else. I wanted to play third base for the Boston Red Sox. Later on, played first-year clarinet for the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And I don't know when I decided to be mayor, but it was certainly later in life as an adult.
You were also an attorney.
Yes, 30 years, practice law.
Do you miss being an attorney?
Sometimes. I miss going to court. I liked going to court. And
You like arguing?
I do.
It doesn't come across.
I like to tell people that when I stopped arguing all the time, I started getting elected. I lost my first 3 elections. And when I stopped arguing, I started getting elected.
How interesting.
The secret, by the way, to getting elected is no matter how many times you lose, keep trying.
Exactly. Isn't it? One of the neat things that you do, I think it's on a weekly or monthly basis, you have an Artist of the Week or Artist of the Month.
Artist of the
Artist of the,
Artist of the Month.
how did that come about?
Well, I stole it from some other mayor, but I can't remember who right this minute. I saw it on the internet and I said, wow, this is a fantastic idea. And Mancy stole it from me over in Methuen. He started doing the Artist of the Month. I think I stole it from Tom Menino. Done a great job in Boston. I get his newsletter and I try to pick up ideas.
And so how do you pick people? What's the process? What happens?
I tell them all, you're lucky to be picked. It was a tremendously competitive process. Anybody that wants to be Artist of the Month can be. We want to promote the arts and artists in Haverhill. I'm a big believer in what's called a creative economy. That if you get arts, if you open your community to people of divergent views, the gay community is welcome in our city. For example, if you open the community up to art and music and festivals, having a lot of music, we're going to have 2 different sets of music festivals this summer, that you attract great, attractive, smart young people to come to your community. I'm a big believer in that.
And another thing you do is you recognize heritages and you celebrate Lithuanian Day or Albanian Day or whatever it is.
How about Hungarian Day?
Is there a Hungarian Day?
They're going to be as soon as we get you there.
Okay, I'd love to attend the Hungarian Day, but it's a really great way of recognizing the diverse population that we have.
Well, I can't remember who I stole that one from. I think it was Mike Sullivan over in Lawrence, my pal Mike. And we do Lithuanian Independence Day, Polish Independence Day, Dominican Independence Day.
There must be an Italian Independence Day.
Of course.
Of course.
I didn't for years. I said everybody knows I'm Italian and I'm proud of it. But then the consul general from Boston contacted me and asked me if I'd do something. So we started doing Italian Independence Day, which, by the way, is March 17th, same day as St. Patrick's Day. We have about 14% Spanish-speaking population, according to the most recent census.
And then there's all the others. And what kind of English is a second language and so forth?
These are great questions, by the way. The number one request that I've received over the years from the Latino community is ESL classes. Contrary to the popular prejudice and beliefs about the Latino community, the people that I meet at least want to learn English, they want to be assimilated into society. And we've set up a couple of ESL classes, but more needs to be done in that area. We set one up at the library and also one at the Citizen Center.
Talk about it. I just want to go back to attracting businesses and attracting people to come here.
Well, this is our challenge. Our challenge is how do we attract more business? And this is all small grunt work that doesn't get in the paper. One of the things we've done is we put an intern on for the summer, a wonderful lady her name is Alicia Briggs, just graduated from Wellesley College. And she's created a database for us of all of the vacant buildings in the city of Haverhill. So that if somebody comes to our city and wants to rent space or buy space, they call us and we tell them what's available.
You've done some rezoning. Is it time for another set of rezoning?
I think it is, actually. I've been thinking about that. I think it's time for another set of rezonings with residential. I've been giving this a lot of thought. We set out about 20 years ago, I was on the council then, a little less than that, probably 15 years ago, to protect areas of the city, protect the water supply by having 2-acre zoning. What that's done is it's stifled all growth in those areas completely. There are better and smarter ways, and it's also led to sprawl. A 2-acre house means that you're going to have a tremendous amount of sprawl. You're going to have places spread out. There are better and smarter ways today to protect your water supply. One of them is called low-impact development, where you require a developer to put in porous surfaces to protect the water supply, to have higher energy codes. That's the type of thing that I'd like to look at. And also with cluster zoning means you have the same 2 acres, but you can cluster the houses to get closer together. I think we need to take a look at those things.
Are you thinking of running for any other office, or?
I've thought various times about running for higher office. I don't know. We'll see. Bill Clinton.
Haven't ruled it out.
I haven't. No, definitely not. Bill Clinton once said, though, that those who look beyond the next election often don't make it beyond the next election. So right now, I'll just concentrate on my election in November.
What's the unemployment rate like in Haverhill?
It's below the national average, but above the state average, and has been all along. Below the average in this region. I can't remember what it is right now. I think around 7.7, 7.8.
And what
somewhere in
kind
there.
of economic development do you have in place in terms of job retraining?
Well, let me talk about that. The biggest biggest employer in Haverhill by far and away is something no one ever talks about, and that's the food processing and manufacturing business. I don't mean restaurants. I mean places like Hans Kissel and Hannah Foods out there in Wood Hill, Nestle's and
Nestle's in Haverhill.
yeah, I can't remember the name of it right now, on Primrose Street. Fiorentini Bakery. Those places together employ thousands of people, many of them immigrants, by the way. And one of the things that I would like to do is to take some people who are now unemployed, perhaps people who've been on welfare for a while, and retrain them to work in the food processing industry. We've put in for a grant for that, and we'll see what happens. Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who's been listening. This is Hometown Talents and Treasures. We'll be back next Sunday with another episode. We're going to have a female athlete here talking about ways you can get in shape and stay healthy this summer. This is Eszter Vajda, and we'll see you next week.